Welcome everyone. Of course, I'm Sheila Huggins. We're at Millennium Gym in Durham. Thank you again, Patrick, for hosting this. And we have lots of our judicial candidates with us. So this is going to be an opportunity for you to hear directly from them in this informal setting, even though they look awesome, more awesome than me. But I'm going to go down the row here. I think I'm going to start with Anita, let her tell us who she is, what she's running for, and why people should be really interested in making sure they get behind the judicial candidates in this election.
Great, well thank you so much. My name is Anita Earls. I'm running statewide for the North Carolina Supreme Court. And I think it's so important that people pay attention to the judicial races because the decisions that the courts make really impact everyone's life.
All right, and then we have Toby, who's running for one of the Court of Appeals seats. And we've got 3 candidates who are actually running for the Court of Appeals seats. So when you guys introduce yourselves, sort of help people understand, because sometimes even I can't follow that. Now, Judge Arrowwood is already on the Court of Appeals, but there are 3 seats. So explain how that works as you're sort of going through this.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hi, I'm Toby Hampson. I'm running for what will be designated as seat number 2 on the ballot for the Court of Appeals this fall. It is a statewide race as well. It's the seat that's being vacated by Judge Calabria. Each of us are running for individual seats on the court. So it's important that you vote in really all 4 of these statewide races. You know, this is a blue moon election in which the only statewide race is our Court of Appeals, the state Supreme Court. And so I practice law in Raleigh. I'm a board certified specialist in appellate practice and clerked at the court, and I've been in private practice for about 14 years, focusing on cases in the Court of Appeals, the state Supreme Court. I'm running because really, now more than ever, we need judges who have the right experience, real hands-on experience handling these really complex issues that come before the court. And secondly, we need judges now who are committed to an independent judiciary, judges who understand that the judicial branch is in fact a co-equal branch of government under our Constitution, and who are willing to provide everybody their day in court with fairness, respect, and civility to provide the justice they deserve.
Awesome. Thank you. Judge Arrowwood.
I'm Judge John Arrowwood, and I'm running to retain my seat on the Court of Appeals. It will be seat number 1 on your ballot. I have been on the court for about almost a total of 3 years by the time the election is, in 2 separate terms. I clerked at the court. I was a staff attorney and the senior staff lawyer there. I practiced in Charlotte for over 26 years doing civil, commercial, employment, and administrative type regulation law. I believe that it is important that we have folks who have experience and folks who have a proven record of what kind of a judge they will be based upon what they've done in their life. And I have that proven record. There are 180 opinions or more that I've drafted over my time, and I invite you to go look at them and see what kind of a judge I am.
Hi, I'm Allegra Collins. I too am running for the Court of Appeals. I'm running for seat number 3, Judge Elmore's seat. Judge Elmore's been on our court for 16 years, and he will be missed. But I am working hard. I would love to be at the Court of Appeals, and I just want to give a special shout out to my students at Campbell Law School. I teach judicial writing there. I teach appellate advocacy, and I manage the externship program. And I also practice in our Court of Appeals in the Supreme Court. So these are really important races. They are statewide, so we are on everybody's ballot in North Carolina.
All right, so now that we've sort of introduced ourselves, so here's the deal, okay? A lot of times people get really concerned about the presidential elections when they come up every 4 years, and they get very interested in like the local election, who's running for sheriff or who's running for mayor. And a lot of times people just aren't that interested in who's running for judge, okay? And as each of you introduced yourselves, it's evident that you come to these positions with a lot of experience. So to some extent, we need to sort of bring this back down to a level where people understand how this impacts their daily lives, because really sometimes that's the piece that's missing. It's sort of like, okay, well, they all sound like they're experienced, but what does it mean to me here when I get up and I gotta take my child to school and I gotta take my mom to the doctor's office? Like, what's the really big deal here? Why does this really truly matter? What's going to get people out of their homes and get them out to vote for you? So let's start on this end this time.
All right, so the judicial races are important. We have seen a lot of cases recently go to the courts, be decided by the courts, and it's really important to have both judges who are experienced and fair and impartial. They are deciding cases that they affect everybody's lives. We're talking about child custody, we're talking about property disputes, we're talking about life, liberty, money, things that affect everybody every day. And it's really important to have judges who will take the time and be thoughtful to make these decisions that affect everybody's lives.
And
Well,
you've been there.
The Court of Appeals actually is the court of last resort for many appeals. The Supreme Court doesn't take as many appeals as the Court of Appeals. There are about between 14 and 1,500 cases a year come to the court, and they involve child support. They involve every criminal case other than a case where a death sentence has been rendered where someone appeals. They involve all the civil cases except for certain business court cases. They involve things that affect everybody's everyday life. And they're cases that are important to the litigants every day. And that's what we have to keep our focus on, is while we may not be making new law in every case, it's important to the litigants that that case be decided correctly. And that's why you need folks who have a broad base of experience and who like me, who's had private practice experience and who has a record of what one can do as a judge.
Yeah, and really building on what Judge Arrowood said, the Court of Appeals in particular has a direct impact in the day-to-day lives of all North Carolinians. It decides cases from all over the state, all 100 counties, in practically every area of law. So yes, if you are charged with a crime, the Court of Appeals is going to impact your life. If you're an injured worker or an employer, the Court of Appeals is going to impact your life. If you're a consumer or a business, the Court of Appeals decisions are going to impact your life directly, because the decisions of that court really do govern the decisions of the trial judges all across the state, and that's in every area of law, including family law. So if you're a parent, if you're a husband, wife, a consumer of healthcare, those decisions will directly impact your life and the lives of all North Carolinians, and that's why it's so important to vote in these races and vote for people with experience.
And we're all consumers of healthcare.
We are all consumers of healthcare, whether we want to be or not.
That's right. And so, Anita, you're in somewhat of a different position because you're the one that's running for the Supreme Court seat. So tell us from your perspective.
So we have a 7-member Supreme Court. There's only one seat on the ballot this year. I really think that the reason why I decided to run is the same as the reason why voters should care. So for 30 years, I've been a civil rights attorney, and the reason I decided to step away from representing individuals and seek a seat on the court is because, given what I've seen as a civil rights attorney, what's happening at the federal level with our federal courts, I think our state constitution and our state courts are going to be a strong avenue of protection of our rights in the near future. And so whether that's your employment rights, whether that's rights that people have when they're charged with crime, whether it's your civil rights, your right to vote, right to housing, all of the things that impact your daily life, I think those decisions can happen at the state court level, and that it's an important forum going forward.
Tell people something that they may not know about you. It's like, yes, you're running for the North Carolina Supreme Court, but what's that one thing that people may not know about you as you're going through this race that you think matters in terms of who you are as a person?
Well, thank you. Yes. So I grew up in a mixed race family. My father's black, my mother's white. And people may not realize that when my parents met and fell in love in Missouri, it was actually illegal for them to be married. And it wasn't until I was 7 years old that the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in a way that invalidated those laws across the country. So that really gave me a sense of how it's possible to use the law to get us closer to equal justice. And it's really been my personal experience seeing the barriers that my family and my community has faced that inspired me to become a civil rights attorney in the first place.
Well, for me, it's really bringing a sense of North Carolina. I'm not a native-born North Carolinian, but I did grow up largely down in Moore County, attending schools like Sandhills Farm Life Elementary and Union Pines. Actually graduated from high school here in Durham from the School of Science and Math, and then went to law school in Harnett County. And so now I live, practice, and raise a family in Wake County. And so I think that's really instilled me with a sense of this state and of the people of this state and the importance of the judiciary all across the state of North Carolina, which again is why the Court of Appeals is so important.
Judge Airwood.
Well, I was born in Yancey County. Neither of my parents had a college degree. In fact, I was the first person in my family to obtain a 4-year college degree. My parents died when I was 15, and I went to live with my brother, who at that time was a state trooper in Lenore, North Carolina, with my brother and sister-in-law and his 6-month-old daughter, and I lived with them through law school when I went to Chapel Hill. When I was initially appointed to the court, and I still am the only openly LGBTQ statewide office holder in the state, and so I have seen the way that the law can help protect equality for folks, and that's something that I believe is critically important for North Carolina.
You might know this, but I love sports. I'm a big sports fan, big Hurricanes fan, and I grew up playing sports. I played lots of different sports, soccer and basketball, and I played tennis at UCLA, and also played professionally and represented the United States twice in the Pan American Games in a sport called team handball, which is the second most popular team sport in the whole world behind soccer. But we don't know
Didn't know that.
in the U.S. So it's a fantastic sport. If you Google team handball, you get to watch one. But I played goalie, which is the crazy position. But I love sports, and I really bring the hard work and the dedication and the commitment. Those things that I grew up doing in sports is what I had done in the law and what I would bring to the court. And really, additionally, is teamwork. You don't really think about teamwork when you think about judges. But the Supreme Court is 7 justices, and the Court of Appeals is 15 judges, and we would sit in panels of 3. And it is important to collaborate. It is important to be able to give and take, and to criticize, and to bounce ideas, and to work as a team when you're working as a panel. So I think that that's an important quality to be able to bring to both courts.
So I want to open it up and just make it a little bit more conversational so people can just sort of hear, your take on things. And whoever wants to go first gets to go first.
Toby does.
Sure, I'll go first. Anytime. Well, for me, it comes back to fundamentals. It really comes back to this concept that, we've been really, really lucky in North Carolina and really fortunate to have a bench and bar that has been incredibly clean, particularly relative to other states. But I think in this era of sort of the social media discourse and the political discourse, it's something that we as a legal profession and we as judicial candidates have to be very careful to preserve and maintain. It's not something we can take for granted. So I think it's really important that we as a profession really focus on the collegiality and civility within our courts, and I think that in itself leads to a level of an independent judiciary that frankly we should be proud of here in North Carolina, because we've really done a good job doing that, but we've got to work to maintain it.
So you said something, and I want to clarify that for people who may be watching later, because not everybody understands what we mean when we say an independent judiciary. Like, we know what we're talking about, but help listeners sort of understand what that really means and why that's even important.
Well, it's important because there are 3 co-equal parts of government in North Carolina, and it is very important that each of those branches be able to do the job that the Constitution gives them to do without any interference. And it's also important that we have a judiciary that is not dependent upon money from the special interest. It's not dependent upon things. We used to have in North Carolina public financing for campaigns, but the legislature has done away with that. We used to have nonpartisan elections. The legislature has done away with that. So it's absolutely critical that you have a judiciary that's not beholden to another branch of government, and a judiciary that's not beholden to any special interest money, that can decide the cases as we have taken oath to do, without favoritism to any party or to the state, consistent with the Constitution of North Carolina and of the United States and the laws thereof.
Yeah, but the other thing I want to add is that we're talking about money, and all of the candidates running in the races have to ask for money because we have to fund campaigns. So the other thing is to look at an individual's ability to rule without fear and favor, to uphold the law, even if that might subject them to criticism, even if it means that at some point they might not be elected again because it wasn't the popular decision. But the ability to rule fairly and accurately based solely on the law, and that's a personal point of pride, I think it's important when we're looking at an independent judiciary, because it is hard to cut through the noise of partisan elections and fundraising and money and endorsements.
Well, I think having an independent judiciary means the rules are the same for everyone, and that right now we really do face a very serious threat to the independence of our judiciary in this state because of the actions that the North Carolina legislature has taken. And in particular, there is a constitutional amendment proposed on the ballot that would change how judges are appointed when there's a vacancy, and that would allow the legislature to essentially to appoint instead of the governor. And there have been, in my race, the North Carolina General Assembly has passed 5 separate laws seeking to impact the outcome of this election. And my view is the voters should be the ones who choose who wins this election, not the North Carolina General Assembly.
I think it's telling that you've got 4 candidates here who are all committed to that concept of an independent judiciary. I think that's the kind of consistent message we need across the board, frankly, from all judicial candidates, irrespective of partisan labels or anything else. And so I think it's really important that the 4 of us can sit here and stand for that, and stand for an independent judiciary.
Yeah, and so you mentioned the constitutional amendments.
Well, since I raised the topic of the amendments, let me jump in here and say that the amendment that deals with the administration of justice, how judges are selected, that's one that judges do have a right to comment on.
Okay.
For the other amendments, what I can say is that there are a lot of sources of information out there. A lot of groups, both the partisan groups as well as nonpartisan groups, that are working to get information to the public about what those amendments mean, what impact they might have. And it's just public knowledge. Day before yesterday, 5 of our former governors had a press conference and gave their view of 2 of the amendments and have filed a brief in court in some of the litigation over the amendments. So I actually think that there is a lot out there for the public to access, and that it's not too hard. There'll be a lot of, in the media, on social media, there'll be a lot of information. So it shouldn't be too hard to figure out what the different positions are on the amendments.
And the League of Women Voters usually does a really good job of pushing out information. Folks just need to find it, read it, and look at it. But to understand it and to talk to folks about what the ramifications of the various amendments are.
What are you doing to sort of, do you have any way that you're working specifically to sort of reach out to younger voters?
Well, I think that social media has played a big role in all different kinds of campaigns. I think the younger generation is, for the most part, on some sort of social media, so being able to engage with them in social media, I think, has helped a lot. And also just speaking with groups, speaking with school groups, speaking with students at Campbell Law School and others, and getting the word out that it is important to vote, and that there is a lot of opportunity to vote. Lots of people have worked hard to get early voting sites, to get early voting dates and times, and so the opportunity is there, and they should take advantage of it.
Well, I actually think there are a lot of voter education tools that are, pushing text messages and showing up on people's phones. But I would say, so because the right to vote is so important to me, I have made it a high priority to have a very grassroots campaign. And I have field organizers in several parts of the state who will be reaching out to college campuses. So there's definitely an effort to engage young people. But you have to, my view is, you have to sort of understand what their issues and concerns are and meet them where they are. And for judges in particular, that's, I think, in many ways really hard. But I think when you a lot of people are talking about this as a justice election, because not only are judges being elected, but district attorneys and sheriffs in a lot of counties. So the people who run the justice system are at the choice of the voters, and I think getting young people to understand or see the intersection with their lives is important.
Well, I think it's also critical in these judicial races in particular to be able to educate folks to not just vote the congressional race or not just vote the legislative race because of another ruling that the legislature made, which moved these races to the bottom of the partisan ballot. And so it's critical for us to be able to educate not only young people, but everybody that they need to vote all the way down. And one reason that some people would cynically say that things are moved to the bottom of the ballot is because there's a drop-off as people vote, and they drop off. There's a drop-off, and so we've got to educate folks that it's important to vote all the way to the bottom and to vote on the constitutional amendments, which will be even below that.
Yeah.
And in counties where there are paper ballots may be on the back of the ballots. So there
It's not just voter fatigue, it's you actually have to...
You have to turn them over
Yeah.
and do those things. So it's really important for folks to be educated and to understand that they have to vote the entire ballot all the way through the constitutional amendments.
One of the things that you mentioned, and I said this earlier this year at an event I was attending, you mentioned social media. And, so there's still all this hoopla to some extent about Russia. But I keep, one of the things I told the students over at Duke was, if you ever question the power of social media, like that should have answered that for you. Because to the extent that you have another country saying that they're going to use social media to influence a presidential election, that really tells you how you can use that to impact the lives of everyone in terms of getting them out to vote. So that's definitely, we're not at the VR stage, but at least we're at the social media stage.
That's why we're here with you, so that we can share on social media.
Exactly.
And I think that what's incredible about younger voters is because they've kind of come of age in this era of social media, in this era of being able to get on Google or other platforms to do their own research. They have a much greater ability to weed out sort of falsehoods and untruths and make their own judgments. It's not enough just to spoon feed people anymore. And I think that's something that number one is really encouraging. And number two, the other thing that's encouraging is the sheer amount of energy within our younger voters right now. I think they're probably more energized than ever. But we're also seeing that translate. We're seeing that translate into younger candidates across the board, a lot of first-time candidates across the state and nationwide. And that's been something that's been, frankly, inspiring to me and gives me a lot of hope. And I think that's what, in a lot of ways, kind of gets all of us out of bed, is to go talk to some of these younger, engaged voters every day.
But when you look at how easy or hard is it to vote, I think we should not take for granted the resource we have in North Carolina, which is early voting, right? So beginning October 18th, you can go and vote pretty much 9 to 5 in most counties, and all counties have some Saturday voting, many have Sunday voting. And the beauty of early voting is that if there's any problems with your voter registration, or if you haven't registered, or if you moved and didn't change your registration, you can correct all of that at early voting, because you can register and vote at the same time. And so that's an enormous resource that we have here in North Carolina that I really encourage people to take advantage of.
Yeah, that's definitely one of those things I think sometimes people don't think about. In my house, we always did this thing where we all went on election day together, like that was this big thing. And now I'm just like, oh no, we're doing early voting. So yeah, any other thoughts on that? Yeah. All right, you guys got to be a little bit more excited. I have to cut this part out. Yeah, go, Toby. Like, this is why they're running for judicial.
That's right.
You know what we
Judicial
want to
temper.
do. I know, right?
It's true. We want to sit in a room at the closed door and read and write. That's not what we're running to do.
Well, I think it's useful to address this question of trust in our elections process. You mentioned Russia and meddling, but it's not only that they put things out over social media, but there is now, law enforcement investigation of how certain states' election rolls have been hacked, and one of the concerns about allowing overseas voters to vote by email is that that can potentially be intercepted and the results altered. So putting resources, and that's intellectual capital, smarts as well as money, behind ensuring the integrity of our elections process, so that people have faith and confidence that when they go to vote, their vote will count and it'll count equally to everyone else's. I think that's an important step in our democracy that we shouldn't overlook.
Well, and to build on that and sort of highlight the importance of the judicial races again, oftentimes it's the courts who are going to protect our right to vote. It's the courts that are going to have the final say in how this plays out, and then including in any criminal prosecution that may arise out of that, including any gerrymandering issues and everything else. And so that's another reason why, on a very fundamental level, it is important that you know who you're voting for to be your judges in this state.
Well, and it's also critical, to go back to early voting, it is absolutely critical that we have voting available to the largest number of people to make it convenient for people to vote. And that's why it's great that we have the early voting we have, and why folks need to take advantage of it and be able to vote early. And as Anita said, if there's an issue with your registration, it can be fixed at early voting. It can't be fixed on the day if you're voting on election day. So if you think there's a problem with your registration, or if you have moved and you haven't changed, go vote early. Go vote when you can have the things changed, and when it's perfectly fair, legal, and all for that to happen. And so that's really critical as to why there's been such a fight, I think, over early voting, and where it is, and in what communities it is, and what the hours are, and whether there's Sunday voting or Saturday voting, and those kinds of things. And I believe that we are in a pretty good space right now about availability, based upon what the Board of Elections did in the last, or Board of Ethics and Elections did in the last meeting they had. So take advantage of it. I encourage you to go vote early.
One of the things I wanted to ask you was whether or not there had been some sort of, maybe challenge or something that popped up since you've filed that maybe you hadn't anticipated. And not necessarily anything bad, but maybe just, wow, I hadn't considered this.
Well, I would say that it all stands out to me as, wow, I thought I knew what I was undertaking, but I had no idea what a statewide judicial race would
100 counties.
It's a big state. There are so many counties, there are so many people, there are so many events, there are so many questionnaires, there are so many emails. The sheer magnitude of running a statewide campaign is overwhelming at best. And so I don't think I understood that. But I also didn't understand it until I did it. When people who have run a race said, you meet so many people. And you do. You meet so many nice people. And so for as hard as it is, it's worth it to get to meet the people and to get to talk about the court that we love. And I have so much admiration for everybody who's run an election and won or lost, because you don't know it until you do it. And so I think that just the whole situation was interesting.
Am I one of those nice people?
Some days.
Fair.
But yeah, it is. Well, and and just sort of piggyback on what you said, I think people sometimes take for granted, it's like, oh, well, these are just politicians, or these are just people who are really self-interested in pushing a certain agenda. And really, maybe people don't understand what you actually give up to do this, This is time away from your family, time away from other things that you could be doing. It impacts your health. when you're on the road like this consistently, you're having to talk to people nonstop. So if you're an introvert, after a while, it's like, okay, wait, I need to recharge my battery. Can I just get like 10 minutes? You know, and so there is a commitment on your part, but there is also a lot that you give up. And like you say, you know, a lot of times you've known people who run before, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, thank you for running. People say, thank you for running. And you've probably told other people that too, right? And then now you're in it and you're like, oh my gosh, thank you, all of you who've ever run before, right? Yeah.
That's true.
And in fact, today I just sent my Judge Stevens, a text, and I said, I apologize again for not understanding how difficult this was, because you did it with such grace and poise, and she did it 3 times, and so you do give up a lot, and it is hard. And I think maybe I speak for just me, but I think I speak for others who would just prefer to do the job without the campaign, because they're very diametrically opposite.
Yeah.
What you need to do to win and be an extrovert versus maybe what we all want to do, which is be an introverted thinker. So,
Well, it really is two, as I only half jokingly say, it really is twofold. If you're a sitting judge, it's 2 full-time jobs, because I carry a full caseload, I do everything that any other judge on the Court of Appeals does, and I run a statewide race. And all the other folks who've been there do the same thing. And so it's 2, and it's just a lot of work. there's and now that the race there's no longer public financing, it's even more work, because you also have to raise the funds to do it. And so that's an additional layer on what judicial races didn't used to be, or hadn't been for a while when they did away with public financing. Because there you had to raise a certain amount to show you were viable, and then there was a certain amount of other money. And by the way, it wasn't money funded by the taxpayers, it was money funded by lawyers who paid $50 more each year on their bar dues in order to support this. And so it's raising the money, it's being everywhere that you can be, and it's doing the job in the office full
Yeah,
time.
that's a
and,
lot.
And to get to work and to get your work out timely. And that's one of my big things, is I want everything to appear out of my office at the same time as if I wasn't running. And so that's what makes it an interesting task.
Well, and that's a high standard to hold for yourself.
I guess I have a slightly different take on it, in that I really have been doing civic engagement work from the nonpartisan side for most of my career as a voting rights attorney. And so now I feel like I'm doing the same thing, but from a partisan side, that is encouraging people to vote, telling them why voting matters. And it's really, I consider it a real privilege to have this opportunity. And so the other thing I'll answer, though, is you asked kind of what unexpected things have happened. And for me, it blows me away every time I go to a county and I'm at an event and I talk about why I'm running for office and my background, and someone will come out and say, "Oh, I remember when you represented me in this case."
Oh, wow.
And sometimes that has happened in rooms of 500 people, and it just like makes my heart. It's like I'm getting to see all of the communities that I've worked in for 30 years, and people coming forward and saying, here's how my life is different because of the work that you've done. So that's just been incredibly gratifying. And however the election turns out, to have had that opportunity and that experience is I'm really grateful for it.
And for me, I think one of the big things about running a statewide campaign, and I was in Brunswick County on the coast on Saturday night, and Buncombe County in the mountains on Sunday afternoon. And in that long drive, I had lots of time to reflect. But I think one of the things that this campaign has driven home for me is sort of maybe the silver lining on judicial elections, which is it really does force us as candidates who want to be statewide judges to actually get out and know the state, get out to understand the different challenges to the legal communities all around the state, get to understand the different issues, the different communities, and the way the different communities deal with those different issues all around the state. And so I think it's just been really important for me to travel a bit around the state and get to know the state better if I am going to be a judge on the Court of Appeals, which does decide cases from all over So,
And just to piggyback on that, Justice Evans wrote a really great blog a while back about the silver lining of judicial elections, and the other one is that we educate people about the courts. It isn't every day that somebody comes in and wants to talk about the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court. We all talk about it all day.
Right.
But to be able to go in to explain the different levels that we've got in our system and what each one does and what it is that we want to do as a judge and why it's important, I think is really a very important part of what we're doing as judicial candidates.
Yeah, and I think you're really right about that, because even as I was sort of talking to people and saying, hey, we're going to be at the gym and, here are the candidates who are going to be there, people would say, oh, wait, okay, so that's the Durham, they're running for, is that district court? And I'm saying, okay, so let's sort of, no, this is actually, and so yeah, so if you aren't in the court system, then for you, you don't really understand those different layers. And so yeah, by running, you're actually educating people about what the actual structure looks like in terms of the judiciary system. So yeah.
yeah, I mean, how many times a day do you get asked, well, can I vote for you?
Yeah.
I'm not in your district.
Exactly. That's it. Not in your district. Yeah. Yeah.
So so there is an educational component to this, which is really important.
Anita, you talked a little bit about family, but do the rest of you want to talk about family and anything like that sort of sticks out that you might want to share with people? And I'm not leaving you out. I'm just saying you can speak to it too again. But yeah.
I have a son who started high school yesterday.
Okay.
So that was a big deal. Freshman in high school. And then I have a daughter who's 5 and who will start kindergarten in 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
So it's a new school for each, and it's been both great for them. They've been involved. They've been excited. They got to choose my colors. They've done, they've driven around and looked at signs. They have enjoyed lots of this, and yet it has also been hard to miss things. It's been hard not to put them in bed. It's been hard to miss band concerts. It's been hard to miss swim meets. And so I look forward to not missing those things on November 7th and beyond. So it is a sacrifice. I think it's worth it. For me, it's really important for my kids to see that I'm out there fighting, working hard for equality and justice, and to do something that's important. But I also look forward to getting home.
Yeah, and one of the things you just sort of said is that's sort of how we sort of inoculate the next generation from not being involved, by having them be involved in their parents' lives when they're going through these campaigns. And so it's sort of like, okay, so tell me again, Mommy, you're running for what? And who are these other people? And and so yeah, so your son's a freshman. So yes, so there's because I grew up in a political family, and so you grow up knowing about community issues, and that yes, the city's responsible for this and the county's responsible for this, and so it makes you more of an engaged resident in your community and a more knowledgeable voter. So yeah, that sacrifice, but then the family sort of getting something out of it.
And children make the best canvassers.
Oh yeah.
Because who's going to say no to them?
I know. Yeah. No sort of child labor laws.
Right. Fair. No, and so I have 3 daughters, ages 8, 6, and 3, and an incredibly understanding wife who is helping me with this campaign in an incredibly hands-on fashion and hugely supportive. And she's doing it while running her own law firm. Full-time, practicing full-time, and basically raising our 3 daughters. And so, I've been incredibly fortunate to have that support.
How old are your daughters?
They're 8, 6, and 3.
Okay.
So
8, 6, and 3.
yeah, so rising 4th grader, 1st grader, and preschool. And it's been really fun to have them on the campaign trail too, and with their little Toby Hampson
I know.
T-shirts.
I've seen people before. It's like my dad's running for it. Those are always really cute. It's like, oh, you just got like 10 votes with that child running around with that on it.
Which is another thing that my incredibly understanding wife has taken care of on the campaign trail.
Well, I'm different in that I am single, and which makes my schedule a little better. But I'm, as I said, I think I said our parents died when I was 15. I went to live with my brother, He is now retired to the mountains, and he had one daughter, my niece, who was a lot like my little sister because she was 6 months old when I moved in with them, and her daughter is now a senior at Chapel Hill, and I just got a text from her today, excited about the fact that she got her first interview for med school, and
wow.
so she's.
Okay.
I've been going through with her taking the MCATs and applying to med school, and she was happy to text me today to say that she just got her first interview application. So, but it is. For folks who have small children, I don't see how you do it. I don't see, and your spouses have got to be just absolute angels.
Yeah, I will add that my husband is home with the children, young, and he's unbelievably supportive. He's run his own race. He's a Superior Court judge, and understands very well the difficulty in running a race. And there are days when not only does he understand that I need to go, but he shows me out the door because he knows I have to go.
And y'all just celebrated an anniversary.
Well, yeah, so I have 2 sons and 2 grandkids. So
okay.
I don't have the childcare responsibilities in the same way. But I also want to share with folks that my family has impacted why I'm running for office in a different way. And that has to do with the fact that 12 years ago my brother was murdered, and the person who murdered him was never brought to justice. And so I have a real sense of what that means and what that feels like when the justice system doesn't work the way it should. And that's part of what it motivates me to want to try to do better.
Yeah. And so the continuum is very broad there in terms of having small, young kids, having older kids, and then having sort of surrogate kids. Because I mean, and that's truly what it is. Like, you don't have to have the kid right there in your home to impact, right, their future. And so voters get to see that and know that, you know, you're not just doing things right here, but you're, you know, influencing other people around you as you go about your daily life. What would you say to people who are sort of thinking, and we touched on this a little bit, but are sort of thinking, you know, I'm still going to step out of this. You know, I'm still not sure. What do you say to that?
Well, I understand why some people feel like their vote doesn't matter, it doesn't make a difference. And the first thing I'll say is that if you feel that way because you think that the system is rigged, that gerrymandering has put you in a safe district and it doesn't matter who you vote for, the outcome's determined, that is not true for the statewide races. You know, as a Democrat, I need every Democrat in every county to come out and vote, and particularly because this is a midterm election, your vote is really going to matter a lot. So I think that's one thing to help people understand, that for the statewide races, every single citizen's vote contributes to the outcome of that election. But then the other thing I would say, maybe at a deeper level, is that at least for me as a woman of color, you know, my ancestors were not allowed to vote, or there were literacy tests, or people risked losing their jobs, and people really put their lives on the line for the right to vote. And I just feel that I have an obligation to honor that legacy and to not take it for granted that I can vote without any of those current impediments. And so I would say remember our history and honor those who struggled to make it possible for everyone to vote.
Well, and really, I think what we've seen in the last several years is incredible energy. We've seen incredible energy. We see it teachers marching and educators marching. We see it with students marching. We see it with women marching. We see it with the March for Science. We see this incredible energy that is built and built and built. The way that translates into actual action is at the ballot box. And that's why the votes matter. That's why this midterm matters. And if 2018 is not the year that we go to the ballot box, then I don't know when it will be. And so this year maybe matters more than any other year until next time.
Well, it's really critical in this election that folks go vote, there is a candidate in every legislative race on both sides of the ballot. And so there are folks to vote for. But as Anita said, even if your district is safe, a safely Democratic district, if you don't go vote, Anita's not going to win. I'm not going to go back to the Court of Appeals, and Toby and Allegra is not going to win, because it is critical that Democratic voters go vote, and that they vote all the way down the ballot. They find their names on the ballot and vote, and turn it over and learn about those constitutional amendments and vote on those as well. So it's absolutely critical. Your vote matters. Every vote matters in a statewide judicial race. Many times they're decided by less, they've been decided by less than a vote a precinct. So it's absolutely critical in each of those districts that you go vote, whether or not you think your legislative candidate is safe or you don't think your legislative candidate has an opportunity to win. It is absolutely critical to the four of us that you go vote.
I'm going to sort of switch it up just a little bit, because I always like to throw this out there. I hinted about it a little bit earlier. We're here in the gym, you know, and like you said, from Brunswick to Buncombe, you get a lot of reflection in, but you're also sitting on your rear for a very long time, okay? So what does it look like in terms of trying to stay healthy when you're engaged in this, and not just like getting in the gym, but also the sort of mental tenacity and fortitude and the strength that comes with being able to do this for so long?
Well, it's my trainer texted me the other day and said, "Am I ever going to see you again?" And obviously, he hasn't seen me much lately, and it is difficult to get on a routine, because you're supposed to be various places.
And all these places have food, right? I mean, so many of them.
All these places have food, and you're not getting as much sleep as you should if you wanted to be really healthy and all of those things. But it is critical to take care of yourself. And as I just had 2 interns who were leaving. Today was their last day, and they were talking about where they were going to interview, and they were going to interview at big law firms. And I said, well, the one thing I would tell you is something that I'm probably not doing a very good job of right now, is to have a work-life balance. And so it's, but it is difficult, as I said, and my trainer said, "Am I ever going to see you again?"
Well, I think, from a health standpoint, I think it's just been really important for me to focus on diet, because exercise has not been happening. But mentally, I kind of draw from growing up. I was a distance runner. I was a miler cross country and ran marathons, and so I've sort of tried to put this race within that model, and try and shut out the noise, run my own race, focus on what I can do at any given moment, and figure out the right pace at any given time. And so that's been really helpful to me. And then frankly, beyond that, it's it's exhausting, but it's also the most energizing thing I think I've ever done. And so, my head hits the pillow and I'm out every night, eventually, at some point when I get home. But the mornings, I'm ready to go again. And that's been an incredible experience. And so I think that's been a huge takeaway for me.
I'm not healthy. I haven't done a very good job of exercise. Toby's probably, sounds like, eating better than I have. So I look forward to November 7th, getting back on some sort of exercise regimen. I have a long list of things to do on November 7th. Might roll into the 8th. But I think that I have relied so heavily on friends. These 3 here, running with them, has been really wonderful. You know what you're going through together, and that's been helpful. My husband has been an immense source of support. My parents have been fabulous. The students at Campbell Law have been so excited that that's given me a lot of energy. You don't sometimes know how you're affecting people, especially in the age of putting things on social media and people see it. So I've just drawn energy from the people who have supported me, who come to events, who you meet out and about, and I think that mentally that always at some point recharges me, no matter how tired I am.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mention that, because that's it's sort of the internal support that, and then there's sort of the external support. Yeah.
Well, I would say I have an amazing campaign team that keeps me going. They ask me if I've eaten yet, so that's fantastic. But I would also say that it is a short, we only have a short period of time, and so many people have step forward to support my campaign, to volunteer, to take their time on a Saturday and go knock on doors for me. And so I just feel that, I have to give it my all. Like I'm leaving nothing. I'm going to put it all out there and do everything I possibly can until the election.
Yeah, it's sort of like, okay, so we've all been in the situation where we had to take the bar exam. And as I told my husband going into that, I'm giving it my all now because I'm only taking it once. I was like, there is no way I'm ever doing this again. And so it's like, here's the schedule, and then this is the way it is. So yeah, sometimes you have to change up and understand that for this moment in time, I'm going to work on the internal piece, the external piece, but here's the plan, and there is an end date. So yeah.
But it's incredible how when you're motivated.
Oh yeah.
To do it, when you're excited about it, when you have a passion for what you're shooting for, what your goal is, you do it. You find a way to do it.
Yeah, somewhere it comes from within, and
That's
you
right.
just, yeah.
That's
you're
right.
still at it.
And like Allegra, I've been incredibly inspired by these three, and to see their passion and energy as they've gone around the state. It certainly kept me going, for sure.
And I too have a wonderful campaign manager who's on the end of my text, and my phone call, on the other side of the desk, constantly listening, motivating, understanding, supporting. So I think we all have people close to us that have helped us continue.
Probably try to wrap up here, but I want to give each of you a moment to sort of say whatever it is you want to say, whatever it is you want to share, final thoughts, reminding people, of course, to go out to vote as soon as the first day of early vote starts, because we're into that now. But yeah.
I'll start and just say thank you for having us. This has been really fun. It's been fun to sit down and talk through some of these interesting topics, and I've enjoyed it. And I thank everybody who's out there who has supported me and who will support me. And please go out and vote for the four of us. And that's it.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to come talk. Folks, if you want to learn more about my campaign, you can go to my website, keepjudgearrowwood.org. And I would encourage you to do that, and I would encourage you to be educated, because it is absolutely critical that we have judges who are experienced and who are independent and who have a record of being able to do the things that you need judges to do.
I think for me, the message is, this is a blue moon election. Every race here matters up and down the ballot, from the State House to the courthouse. And I think it's absolutely vital that you get out, you vote early if you can, but on election day, if not, these judicial races are incredibly important this year. And we've heard the term a justice election. Well, let's make it a justice election. Let's do that up and down the ballot, voting for good candidates who will stand for justice, as I know all four of us will. You can find more about me at tobyhampsonforjudge.com, or find me on Facebook at tobyhampson4nc.
Well, thank you all. Thank you for watching. My specific ask is that you like my Facebook page, which is Anita Earls for Justice. My website is earls4justice.com, and there you can sign up to volunteer and be a part of my campaign. And please share this with your friends, and follow me on Twitter as well. Thanks.
Awesome. And Twitter is like not my thing. So did you give yours?
No, so you should let me go last. They all have the good ideas.
So they all got theirs in. And I noticed that. And I was like, wait, I don't think Allegra did hers.
She was going to save me. So AllegraCollins.com. You can find me on Instagram at Allegra Collins for Court of Appeals. You can find me on Facebook at Allegra Collins for Court of Appeals. Probably if you Google Allegra Collins, there aren't
It'll
too many
come
of
up,
them.
yeah. All right, great. Well, it's been great having you here, and yeah, I don't know that there's anything much more to say other than, again, thank you, Patrick and Sam, for letting us come hang out in the gym so that people can learn more about our candidates who are running for these judicial seats. It's a very important election, not saying that any of the others that go on aren't, but we just need to, here's my thing, I always tell people, like, the judges get no love, okay? So our judges get no love, so this is all about judge love. So going forward, anybody who's watching this, okay, and they want to comment about any race, I want you to hashtag judge love. Brilliant. So show our judges some love, share this with everyone, because we want to have a formed voter population out there that is going to come out and vote as soon as early voting starts, because it's important. Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. And of course, I forgot to say, thank you, Emerson, from behind the camera. She's working 2 cameras. She's been to Chick-fil-A. She's been to Jersey Mike's, and she's doing homework. So thanks to you. And I think we're good.
That's right. I didn't talk about like how negative and ugly they've gone on me already early on. Like that was a little surprise that they went so negative so early, and I just decided I'm not going to talk about it.
Right.
I'm not going to be a victim.
That's right.
I'm just going to tell them my positive stuff.
That's
So
right.
Thank you.
That's
for doing
right.
that.
No, but that's precisely it. Because the more people you meet, and the more people you talk to, and the more people who hear your story and understand why you're right, like the more people who hear what's truly in your heart, then none of that other stuff matters, like ever. It never matters. So it's that relationship building, I think, is what takes us beyond all of the noise. Yeah.
It's just hard when there's 6
It is.
It is.
It is.
A lot of relationships.
It is. Oh, yeah.